podcast. This is a special Thursday night. I said Thursday night, Thursday evening edition, of course. And we're very excited, very honored to be back with y'all one more time. Thank everybody continue supporting us, rocking with us, and most importantly, thank everybody for just tuning in. Thank everybody for tuning in as we live stream. Those who tune in to the near future. Of course, I'm your host, Furman Jackson Jr., broadcast out of the DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, Texas metropolitan area, along with my lovely co-host out of Miami, Florida, the Kingdom Chick herself, Miss Nancy C. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Furman. Just got back from work, ready to rumble.
Hey, I know that feeling because I got to go to work tonight. I got 16 hours I got to pull, but it's okay. The grind is real, the work is real, but most importantly, it's all about getting things done and
For
getting
the
out of our comfort.
kingdom.
Yeah, you're
Hmm.
right. And then getting things done because we know in order for you to do something different. You got to get out your comfort zone. You got to think differently. You got to move differently. You got to do all that great stuff in order to see the things you want to accomplish. But Nance, I'm very excited, very honored, very privileged to have a very special guest on here with us this evening. She's been very consistent for a very long time in the work that she's doing. As she takes on the role of takes on the tag of politics, but she always staying 10 toes down on her business. She's always consistent, and I applaud her for that because being consistent does pays off. And she done amazing work here around the DFW. She's being well known all around the world about the work that she's doing. And we know that your gift should make room for you because the Bible does tell you that, and her gift is making room for and bring forth great men. Well, no further ado, we have Miss Payton Jackson here. Thank you, Payton, for taking time on your productive schedule to come on here and enlighten us because I know you have a slogan, born black but not Democrat. And the reason why I invite you on here to explain the background between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Not too many people didn't know that blacks were actually a part of the Republican Party, but it triggered on down to the year where it ended transition to Democrat. And I know a lot of times when people hear Republican, oh, they're white people. Anytime you hear people say they're Democrat, they're for black people, but not understanding the history. And that's why I invite you on here because with all I getting, let's get a good understanding. I know you have to be more open minded to understand these things that it is history, but this is not history that's not being shared as much. So once again, Payne, thank you for taking time on your productive schedule. I know you're very productive with your journey, of course. How you been? How's your day? And how everything going?
I am having a great day. I am blessed and highly favored, and you know
Amen.
it is always an honor to join you.
And I appreciate you. And that's why I wanted you on here because here on the podcast, we want to go into a whole nother direction when it comes to being fully educated. We have a lot of podcasts in the world, not knocking everybody's podcast, but they talk a lot of gibberish, talk like a lot of foolishness. But here we want to
Let's
be
educate some folks out here.
right, Nancy. That's what it's all about. That's why I invited her on here because not too many people didn't know that blacks were a part of the Republican Party. They don't know that. They thought blacks were part of the Democratic Party, but they thought whites was racist and all this other stuff. But that's why I invited her on here because she's very skilled and equipped to explain. And so, Peyton, please do explain the history of the Republican Party and how blacks were part of the Republican Party because they don't even know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a Google search away. So we know that Dr. King was a Republican. We know that Malcolm X didn't side with Democrats. He didn't care for either one, but he definitely did not side with Democrats. Mrs. King, she wasn't a Democrat. She actually authored the 1991 letter to Congress that sounds very Republican in today's day and time. We have Dr. Claude Anderson that warned us against Democrats, but we also have good Democrats like Barbara Jordan. I want to make it very clear that not all Democrats are bad. That's not what I've said. Um, what I want to explain and what I want to emphasize to people, especially to the black community, we have to stop idolizing the Democrats and the Democrat Party. We have to hold both sides accountable because not only have black people been Republicans and around Republicans from the beginning, I recently found out that here in Texas, the Texas Republican Party was initially founded by Black people.
Hmm.
I just found that out, and I'll have to give Everett Jackson his credit for that. But um, I'm learning more and more each and every day. But like I said from the beginning, it's all a Google search away. I mean, we have our phones in our hands all the time. We can
24/7.
research. Yeah, if we just take the time out and prioritize what we want to learn and the cycles that we want to break, we can change. We can not only learn the history, because the history is important, but what's most important, if you ask me, is changing the present and the future. Now, even if the Texas Republican Party wasn't founded by Black people, which I find is ironic now, but even if it wasn't founded by Black people, you don't need anyone else blazing a trail for you. You don't need anyone else to pioneer something for you before you stand up and say, hey, maybe I'm not a Democrat. I mean, I know my mom is, I know my grandmother is, I know my neighbors are, I know my cousin is a Democrat. But after looking at these policies, after looking at these values, maybe I don't like Donald Trump's tweets, but according to this policy list, I lean more conservative. I lean more Republican. To have enough self-respect for yourself to stand against the crowd, and you may be booed, but it's okay because you're standing up for what you truly believe in instead of trying to follow a crowd. So the history between Black America and the Republican Party is definitely there. It's definitely here in the state of Texas as well. Um, but I think it's more important that we preach despite history. Walk in your truth. Please don't follow a crowd. We have enough followers as is.
And you know what? That's why I respect about you, Payton, because you stand 10 toes down on business. You always consistent in what you're doing. You don't look to please people. You doing what's right and you know what is true. And to benefit people, because that goes biblical for a moment. Even Jesus said we will be persecuted for righteousness' sake. So you always gonna be persecuted. Jesus was persecuted. So we know that we're not going to escape that, but it's like you don't want to go along just to get along. You want to stand out. And we know that when you're standing for your purpose, it will cost you everything.
Mm.
And we see that in scripture. You know what I'm saying? Jesus laid down his life for us. Even though he never compromised, he never did. He stood on principles. And he never wavered from that. He knew what his purpose was. And like you said, you're going to be persecuted. And a lot of people don't want to go through that persecution. They want to go along, just get along. And not only that, do the scripture also say, woe to those who speak very highly of you. Now, if everybody's speaking very highly of you all the time, then that's when you need to check yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, but speaking of the persecution, you were with me that day I went to that Democrat meeting. And
Yeah.
even though Democrats in North Texas, they fight for nonpartisanship with our local elections, it's just wordplay. Because the second that you stand up and you say that you're not a Democrat, you will be crucified. You will be. So it's plain hypocrisy. But back to my point, that was the first time. Like I've been speaking for five-ish years, but that was the first time ever that I had been booed. Now I don't know if you could tell, but that hurt my feelings. When I got home, I started pouting. I was like, "What did I say?" But um, the next day I got back up, and I didn't want to get out of bed because it
Mm.
really got to me. The first time ever being booed, oh, that got to me. But the very next day, I got back up and I did not want to get out of bed. I was like, you know what? Forget all of this. But you have to keep it pushing. Not every room is going to agree with you. Most of the time when I speak, it's not that I don't know how to read the room. I read the room. I just normally I go in the opposite direction. It's okay not to be a follower. Now, am I sticking out like a sore thumb? Yes. As an introvert, do I want that? No, but but I'm not about to allow you to walk me off of a cliff. Like in the black community, a lot of our moms, we say, "Oh, well, if your friend jump off a bridge, are you gonna jump with them?" We need to be asking the Democrats that because they are headed over a hill of no return at this point. And it's not just the politicians, they will rarely be affected. It's really the community that I'm worried about because it's not just the corrupt politicians on both sides of the aisle, not just Democrat on both sides of the aisle, but the misleading, the misrepresentation that I fear is on the Democrat side, and it has the black community in a chokehold. But it's not just corrupt politicians; it's corrupt pastors, it's corrupt churches, it's corrupt
Yes.
nonprofits. It's corrupt neighborhood associations. It's corrupt community leaders.
Mhm.
It's a system. No seat is ever an open seat. On both sides of the aisle, people are walked in. I really want to emphasize to Black America, you need to hold Democrats accountable the same way you try and hold Republicans accountable. And just like how you try and go to Democrat meetings, try and go to Republican meetings. Now, and when I'm in Tarrant County, I am the only black person in these Republican meetings. But I kept going. I'm gonna still go. And I'm gonna still go. And I'm gonna still go. It doesn't hurt me any. I mean, they don't scare me. But recently, I found out in Dallas County, I see more black people. Now they're not um, the majority, but I see more at the Dallas County meetings than I do at the Tarrant County meetings. And if we can bring more of our neighbors into these meetings, if we can have more conservative knocking on black doors in black neighborhoods, we may be able to have that conversation and come together. But it's up to the community to meet the conservatives halfway. Like if I knock on your door, open it. Let's have a conversation. No, you don't have to align with my party, but I guarantee you, more than likely, our values align because you side with the Democrats because you feel comfortable with the Democrats. You're not comfortable with their policies, though. You're not comfortable with what they're doing. Not to the kids, not to the border, none of that. You're not comfortable with that. But it's the two-party system that is really holding us back. And the majority of America is on the conservative side, but it's my demographic that votes hardcore Democrat. And I'm hoping some way, somehow, we can change that.
You know,
Even when they know that it goes against their beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. Identity politics. And what gets me is, and I can't. Hey, if you can come to Fort Worth City Council August 5th, I'm doing a speech against diversity, equity, and inclusion.
okay.
What gets me is that it's the most educated demographic in America, supposedly the most educated demographic in our nation. We vote the most ignorantly.
Yeah, we do.
I don't care because Miss Harris looks more like me, even though she's not black. She looks more like me than Donald Trump. I'm gonna side with Trump because he's covering my values, not because I'm a white
Exactly.
supremacist or I just love white people. I love all people, but that conservative agenda fit me more than the black woman who couldn't answer a simple question.
Right. And that's important. I'm glad you brought that up because we are so close minded to the fact of things, and we have to learn how to be more open minded to things. Even Martin Luther King said it's not about the content of a person's skin, but it's about the character.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of people look at certain faces, I'm going to run with this person. Or just because they may be the same color, I'm going to run with them because they're the same color. But what are their views? What are their values? What the principle they have? And that's what we miss out on because we go off the content of a person's skin.
Hmm.
And
Or
we
a
miss the whole.
political
Go ahead.
party. Or a political party.
It makes sense. It really makes sense. Nancy, one time in.
Yeah, I get a lot of, oh, she's a Trump, a mega supporter, or you know, I really wasn't gonna vote for him, but his values are more way better than what Kamala was spewing out. So I sided with Trump, but I don't agree with most of a lot of things that he does. I just went with what God would have me go rather left than right.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And like I said, I'm glad that we're having this dialogue because people need to know. I think people should need to know and want to know because we gotta grow, we gotta evolve, and we gotta be more open minded to these deeds and knowing these values, knowing these politics, and knowing what's going on. Because we so naive to negative things, we so naive to corrupt things, but we're not being more purpose minded
Yes.
towards these things as well. And I know, Pay, you've been doing this for a minute now. Um, what made you want to get on this journey? What made you decide, hey, I just want to make a change, make a difference in my generation?
So originally it was a TikTok ban. I hate to sound so childish, but when that came about early on, it was years ago when they originally started talking about it. Um, I was like, no, I can't let this happen. But it was around the same time that I kind of gave up on politics. Once I realized the flaws within the Democrat Party, I was like, why would I waste my time and vote if both sides are being stupid? Um, so I was in that funk, and then they were talking about the TikTok ban. I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna just go and run, just out of nowhere. So I decided to run for Congress. Didn't make it, and then I just kept going. I ran for city council, and then I'm running for Congress again. But it started out with TikTok, but that embraced me to type in congress.gov and start to read up on bills. And even though it is extremely boring to read bills, you have to. And that's what gets me because the black community will say, "Oh, I'm a hardcore Democrat." You've never been to a school board meeting. You've never been to a city council meeting. You've never been to county commissioner. You have your phone in your hand all day. You've never typed in congress.gov. But here's the thing, you wouldn't even know what to look for because you don't know who represents you. And that's what gets me. How are you hardcore Democrat and you don't know about the Democrat policies here locally, on a county level, on a state level, and on a federal level? It's pure ignorance. But I cannot blame the politician anymore. Politics is somewhat like a relationship. They're only going to do what you allow. We can't say, oh, my vote is my voice, and then allow organizations to hand us papers around election time telling us who to vote for. I mean, at some point in time, we just have to start using common sense.
Mm,
I agree. Man, I agree 1000%.
totally.
Because we don't take it seriously. We're more focused, more entertainment athletes and entertainers more than knowing what's going on in our own neighborhoods, in our own community. Like I said, we want to leave it up to them to do all the work. But like you said, we tell you, oh, God, vote, and my voice be heard, but we have to be more plugged in, more involved, because we don't see a lot of people. We may, well, a handful of people, they may attend these city hall meetings, very select few, but it's not popular to a lot of people because then when things happen, we want to point the finger.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. But another thing about that is the majority of politicians, whether it's on a local, county, state, or federal level, they don't knock on doors. So, I mean, I would probably be hardcore Democrat if Democrats were the only people knocking to my door. But I've never had any politician or any representation of any politician knock on my door. And I think that that's important. They don't work full time.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
true.
work full time. It's not like they don't have the time or the resources. They can knock on doors and leave literature and educate the community on bond elections and what's going on and zoning changes and stuff like that. They could do it. They just don't. And they know that communities like the black community, not all, but the majority in the black community, they're going to keep Democrats in office just because they're scared of Republicans. But when I offer, hey, you want to go to a Republican meeting with me? Oh, I'm scared. Why? Just it's not a Klans meeting. they're not gonna bite you, bro. Just come on now. It's like we're all grown here. It's a meeting. I promise you that they're not carrying guns, and even if they are carrying guns, they're here to defend you. But it's the victim mentality and the criminalization of the Republican Party. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Like I recently found out that the founders of the Texas Republican Party, they were black, and I'm siphoning through everything, trying to figure out what happened because it can't just be Section 8 and food stamps on why the black people left and went to the Democrats. I'm really trying to figure out what happened. For black people to abandon the Republican Party, especially in the state of Texas.
Yeah, because when I look at it, and I believe we should have a strong work ethic. I do believe that.
Mm-hmm.
God did not make us to be lazy. He did not create us to be lazy. He gave us the ability to think and the ability to work.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time, we were a proud people of being independent, going out there, making things happen, creating. Instead of what can I bring to the table, I go and create my own table and
Mm-hmm.
getting back into that mindset. And then I don't know what happened to the community, whatever, going off into Section 8, food stamps, things like that. And then when Trump came and wanted to ban those things, people got mad. Which I don't see nothing wrong with that because you should, if you have the ability to get up there and go work, you need to go work. You have the ability to make things happen for yourself, you need to. So I don't see anything wrong with that because people have become, someone say people, individuals become so lazy and complacent and want handouts. But what would happen to having that go getter mentality, that mindset? I'm gonna get up and go make something happen instead of just I want a handout. And we look for handouts too many times, but I think the time out for handouts are over with.
Amen. But here's the thing: I've never been a recipient of Section 8, so I can only imagine how hard it would be to convince me to let go of a program that's allowing me to pay $10 for rent. Okay, so outside looking in, I definitely understand it. But look at the history of programs like that and how it affected our structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was having this conversation earlier. At first, it was welfare. It was Section 8 and food stamps and removing the black man from the household. But we
Right.
can't say that the white man did that.
True.
The white man didn't put a gun to your head and say, "Hey, take these food stamps." They didn't do that.
Right.
They didn't do that. You made that decision. Got rid of the black man. But now we are in a time and a place where that's still happening. But in addition to that, we're pushing this ideology on children when it comes to the gay community. Now, identify as you wish, but the second you start approaching our kids, especially our little boys,
Mm.
and that's the backbone, or supposed to be the backbone of the black family, the black man, you're altering that structure yet again. And again, it's my demographic that's embracing this culture, that's embracing this change. And it's just, I mean, we have to hold not only ourselves but others accountable. Our friends, our families, they are people who advocate for these ideologies and embrace for just so we won't be canceled or be banned from the popular table. Like you mentioned earlier, it's okay to make your own table. It's
It is.
okay. And we have to start calling people out. And it's not really a popular thing to do that, but that's the only way people are going to wake up. And it is ironic. It's the woke people that need to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And I know you did a clip a while. Well, I know you did a lot. I know you did a lot of speaking engagements. And on one, you mentioned about the books that we should have got introduced to when we were younger.
Hmm.
And when you said, when I seen the clip, that was very, very powerful and on point. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We was never introduced to those books. We were introduced to math, science, things like that. But we was never introduced to books that was going to help us be a life, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
We were so entrusted to the educational system, math, science, social studies, but we never had books like that to build us for life. And we look at the chaos that it caused us in our own lives.
Well, yeah, what you said was 100% true. We don't learn what we're supposed to in school. If you ask me, outside of basic math and reading, we are completely wasting our time. We need to set a state standard for basic math and basic reading outside of the STAR test. I absolutely hate STAR. But those are the two main subjects that we need to really hone in on and then start talking about trades. Now, I'm all for, I love going to the library. I can spend all day, every day in a library. Um, and yes, the public school system did fail us, but we are beyond the technology age. You are the very few. I won't say you're the only one, but you're not the majority when it comes to willingness and go. When I list off things like books and speeches, how many people do you think actually research the books and speeches? Not, and I understand not everybody has the $10 to buy a book. I understand that. But we have YouTube and we have other softwares that will give us audiobooks for free. So, and then we have public libraries.
Mhm.
So, how many people, percentage wise, let's say 1,000 people seen that education speech that I gave, how many people do you think actually looked at the books that I was recommending instead of just agreeing or just disagreeing with the speech?
Um, Not too many.
I would give or
Probably it's
take, I would say 10%,
okay.
because that's just the sad reality. 90% of people are followers. Very few people have the willingness to do something different.
Do some research.
And it's hard. People think that watching the news is research. That's the bulk mentality in America right now. They think watching one news channel faithfully is just they are caught up. But that's not the truth. I don't care if you watch Fox or CNN.
They're all in cahoots to tell you lies.
I don't care if you watch Fox or CNN. You need to go and go over multiple different sources. It's find similarities and then come to your own conclusion. And then still after that, you still need to pray for discernment. You still need to pray for discernment. But watching one news channel or just the news in general is not research. It's not.
Yeah,
But most people, I was taught that in school. Now, public school system taught me that at least. I don't know what happened with everybody else. That's the one thing I do remember.
yeah, we so caught up on who going with who, sleeping with who. We so caught up on Dee Dee's
Who's
trial.
fighting who? Who's
We
doing what? Who's dating who?
yeah, we're so caught up on that. We'll go into that instead of going into what's very important to us. But but we know we got some people out there who are studying and who are benefiting from the truth, and not just benefit but living it, but benefit living it, but also applying it and also trickle down to others. And I want to talk about the family structure. I see right now the family structure right now is completely destroyed. And we see that on social media, we see that on podcasts, we see the division between when it comes to men and women, the families, the children, and we see that a lot. And we see everybody's pointing fingers at everybody, but when is someone's going to take the accountability and bring forth the solution to the problem? If not, it's going to linger on to the next generation, until someone decides to break this cycle.
Not just someone. It has to be a group of people. It has to be a group of people because we are in a day and time where getting an abortion is not popular.
Yeah.
Um, After 6 weeks in the state of Texas, I don't even think it's um, available for or legal for you to get it. But I guarantee you the ratio or the rate that we have unprotected sex has not changed. So I foresee either a mass amount of illegal abortions happening or a lot more kids being born into broken houses. We cannot blame the white man for that.
Mm-mm.
We can't.
Yeah.
We have to have enough um, go within the black community, within our society in general, um, to treat our bodies a little bit better. And I'm not perfect. I've definitely been victim to lust before. But the second you begin to practice abstinence or commit to being celibate, or just being more careful with your body, and making sure, hey, if I lay down with this person, I need to be not only in a committed relationship, but ideally married.
Right.
Ideally. But it's so taboo to say, oh, wait until marriage. And I didn't wait until marriage. I had a child out of wedlock. So I'm not saying that I'm just a perfect saint. Um, but I do know I will never have another child outside of wedlock. That's what I can say. I can nip it in the bud now. I made a decision and procreated on purpose outside of wedlock, and it comes with a lot of hurdles that some people know about, some people see, but a lot of the hurdles as a single parent, especially when you bring up ADA struggles with SPED or autism or anything like that, those struggles are silent. They're silent. But I mean, it's up to us. It's up to us to not only respect ourselves a little bit more, but respect our households. It's not okay to promote a single parent household. We need the nuclear family. We need both mom and dad. There's things that we get from mom that we don't get from dad, and there's things that we get from dad that we don't get from mom. And then seeing them together in a healthy manner, I believe that's what the black community needs. I think that it's the solution to the majority of problems within the black community, is to have that healthy, let me emphasize healthy, because I know some two-parent households, some healthy and some not so healthy, but we need more healthy two-parent households. But it's up to the men, because women can't procreate by ourselves, and it's up to the women um, to have just a little bit more respect to the people who or to the men that we let in, and men have a little bit more respect to their seeds. I mean, because we have to start acting like the royalty that we are.
Well, definitely, I do see, man. I most definitely I agree with that. Because I had a conversation all the time. I have a conversation with people when it comes to marriage. We were destroyed on lack of marriage. When I say that, fairy tales ruin us, Disney ruin us, but we never understand the reality when it comes to a marriage, the concept, the basics. Before we enter into, and that's what I learned. I look at marriage as a business. I know every time I say that, some people crucify me for that because they think that I don't have no love in my heart. That it was like romance would be there, but at the same time, we got to make decisions in order for the family to move forward, in order for the family to prosper in everything that we do. And that's how I look at it. And we never had these conversations like, okay, when it comes to having a family, are we gonna be more hands on? Are we gonna be attending all these meetings? All this stuff we don't even think about. Where we gonna live at? Are we gonna live in a gated community, or are we gonna live in an apartment? See, these are things that we don't even talk about and discuss. We just go off into, oh, he looks good and she looks good off the physical. But then when we get off into it, people spending all this money on ceremonies and end up right in divorce. Another thing, talk about finances. Are you good at saving? Do you spend a lot? Do you save a lot? Credit score. These are things we don't talk about, but these are things that we need to talk about in order for us to be better. and so we can move forward. And that's just my opinion and my take on it, because that what makes things better. And then that's when you can decipher who's for you and who's not for you, if that makes sense. Because you got to have these conversations before you move forward into these things.
You're
Because
right. We have to have those conversations, but the harsh reality is we're not. We're not asking enough questions before we make that decision, before we lay down with that person, before we jump into whatever relationship, before we even have a kid. We have no idea who we are building this hill with. And if you ask me, having a baby with someone, co-parenting, is a bigger commitment than marriage. Not attempting to downplay marriage. It's just
right,
you can divorce your spouse. You can divorce a co-parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate it when I jump online and I see the 50-50 debate, or men did this or women did this. And in the black community, sometimes in the brown, but mostly from what I see in the black community, we antagonize the argument. For what? We need both. We need both people, both genders that God made. We need both of them to make this thing work. And I think everybody just needs to grab somebody that you like and just just get married at this point, or just settle down. But the thing is, a lot of people who are in relationships, or I won't say a lot, but some of these people in relationships or in marriages for a decade or two are polluting the dating pool. So I mean, that's another conversation that we need to have. But at this point, I just think it's about self respect and just saving our bodies. I hate this sounds so
you're supposed to. I mean, that's a good thing because you got to protect your temple.
religious.
But no, you good because you have to, because we have to protect our temples. Even the Bible talks about our temple, and that's before we got. I'm actually that just confirmation. That just came up. The scripture talks about that. We got to get that bit in our minds to protect our temple at all costs. And what it is, we don't have it in our subconscious mind on protecting our temple. And I don't have any children, so I'm on the outside looking in. But I could just imagine the stuff, and I hate it for a lot of single parents, especially mothers, who has to deal with the burden of carrying a child by themselves, because you have the other person who don't want to have any dealings with it, don't want to do anything with it, and you can't make nobody be there if they don't want to be there. You know, everybody is free moral agent, right? So if
Right,
a person don't want to be there, you can't make them. You can't. If you have to convince somebody to be with you, then they're not for you.
right. And I completely agree with that. And who else agrees is the state of Texas, because the state of Texas does not enforce visitation. So even if you take that person to court, mom or dad, and you win custody and they have visitation, um, the state of Texas does not enforce that. So they can't, the state can't make the other person do visitation. And I say that because we need I want to change our public school system a lot, but another piece that I want to change is what we talk about in sex ed. From what I remember, we talked about the STDs and why we should wear condoms. Having sex prematurely, that it has more effects than STDs and babies. We
Mm,
need to take field trips down to the family courthouse. We need to tell our little boys, hey, you only get 6 days a month and you forfeit 20% of your income. That's not parenting. That's not parenting. Now, I understand that everybody can't do the whole two-parent household. I understand things happen. But 6 days a month is insane.
mm.
And 20% of your income with no cap, insane. But we also need to tell all the girls visitation is not mandatory. Meaning, if dad wants to leave the baby with you 100% of the time, you're responsible and you bet not neglect it. Because then CPS is, they're not going to help you necessarily if you get caught. Now you'll get welfare if you qualify, maybe, but that's not going to cover your monthly expenses. It's not, because who's going to watch that baby while you're at work? That's another expense. Childcare. Last I checked, CCMS had a waiting list. So we need to have these conversations, but not just having children prematurely and promoting and encouraging single parent households. It's also things like soul ties,
Yeah,
that spiritual conversation that we need to have.
Hmm.
That DNA that stays in you as a woman when you have unprotected sex with a man, you have his DNA staying in you for a few weeks.
right. And we
And it's
compare the
even
fact.
worse, even longer if you get pregnant by him. So we need to talk about soul ties. We need to talk about STDs. We need to talk about more than just condoms, because that's not the solution to what's going on. Yes, we need to produce more kids. I know we need to up our population, but creating broken households, that's not the answer.
Yeah, because I'm not I'm not down for broken households at all. I don't agree with broken households because I never came from one. Because when my parents were married, my dad held down two full-time jobs, take care of his family. So I'm not down for broken household. I believe in a healthy households, but it needs to be addressed. It needs to be seen. It needs to be shown. And I'm glad you brought that up, hey, because these are conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
Because we don't have these conversations on the regular. We're so worried about Didi and his situation and everybody else, but we're not having these real life discussions, especially when it comes to parenthood. Parents are to prepare their children for life. And we'll allow the school system thinking that's their job, but it's not their job. It's the parent's job to provide real life issues that transpire, teaching them right from wrong, but teaching about what's going on. And we know that I think the STD rate is very high in the
Hmm.
state of Texas right now.
Yeah, I mean, but they said it in the Bible. The strongest man in the Bible was taken down by lust. So I don't think reading off STD results and stats is gonna help Texans any. But I mean, we don't practice the little things that we were taught in sex ed. We don't use condoms, and we definitely don't go and get a checkup at all, especially in between partners. So. Um, like I go back to the self respect. One that's nasty for people to go. I just want to. Oh, I want to put that out there to discourage this activity. It's nasty to go from one person, unprotected or not, without a test. That's nasty. So please stop doing that. But I mean, they have to have enough self respect to actually follow through with my advice.
Yeah, like I said, it's important. It should be important. And we got to take this stuff seriously because it's a lot going on. And we are destroying ourselves, self destruction, until
Hmm.
we learn how to take control of ourselves, get some discipline in our lives. Ask God to give us discipline. He will give it to you. You just got to ask for it so we can be better as men and be better as women, and that we can live a very productive, fulfilling, healthy life style. Because this stuff is important and we just can't take it lightly. Arguing is not good. I don't believe in arguing. Back and forth, that's just stress to me. Stress, stress, stress. But you could talk about things and have healthy dialogue, have healthy conversations. Like I said, you mentioned earlier about the soul tie. Paul talked about that, about the soul tie. If, a man lay with a harlot, he's one with that harlot now. So we know that sex is spiritual and you do transmit with each other. And we don't think about that. We just think, oh, it's just a physical thing, but no, it's a spiritual
Spiritual
thing.
thing.
And we got to be careful because God never intended for us to sleep with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. That was never God's plan. He intended for you to be with that man with that one woman, that woman with the one man. And again, to death do you part, then you can move on, whatever maybe case may be. But God never intended for us to sleep around with everybody. They know that came from the enemy. And we know it destroys a lot of things. It destroys a lot of family. It destroys a lot of people. Trauma comes involved. That's another thing too. You have people being sexually assaulted growing up. and they're dealing with that. Not just women, but men as well being sexual assaulted by other men. And these are kind of conversations we don't have because a lot of guys, some guys are dealing with that. They're ashamed to address that with a woman that, hey, I was sexually assaulted growing up and I'm dealing with that. These kind of conversations we don't have as well also.
Yeah. In in a perfect world, every woman would be a safe place for men to vent. But we live in this world. It's not
All the
perfect.
world.
Right. So, at first, I want to say my heart goes out to every man because I know a lot of men who were sexually assaulted as children, who the majority of people who know them don't like, they're not aware of what happened, or they've had it thrown back in their face on Mad Day, which is something my mom taught me about. Nothing matters on Mad Day. Or they told their story and it was belittled. So at first, I want to say my heart goes out to those men. Number two, go to therapy. Find you a good therapist. Your therapist does not have to look like you, or maybe you need them to look like you, but go and talk to somebody. Um, And if you are going to bring that up in a relationship, me personally, whether you're a man or not, let it be with your spouse. Because not everyone should have the privilege and the honor of hearing your story. And I say that because this is something that I practice when dating. You can't tell everybody everything because
Right.
mad day is going to come. And when they're mad enough at you,
They'll throw it in
um,
your face.
yeah, they will throw your trauma in your face. So that's just something that I've learned as a woman, as a person, as a victim from my childhood or from my past. I don't tell everybody everything, but I do have a lot to tell my husband. Whenever you make it here, baby, I have a lot to tell you. But no, not everybody deserves your story. Not everybody deserves to see you be vulnerable. So it's okay to put on that facade when you leave the door, but I hope that every man and woman eventually finds their person to vent to because it's a lot to suppress that for decades until you find that person. So find a therapist. But I do understand. I'm still diagnosed with PTSD. I don't think that will ever change. But the flashbacks still happen. The nightmares still happen. The triggers are still there. Um, but you have to be man or woman enough um, to understand your triggers and know what to share and what not to share because a lot of people will play on your triggers. It doesn't
Mm.
matter how genuine they are today. Tomorrow could be mad day.
Yeah. So in other words, that seat need to be exclusive for a certain particular person and not allowing everybody to sit next to you. Because a lot of times we give the best of ourselves to everybody and it don't pan out that way. And just going back to that self love, loving yourself, respecting yourself, honoring yourself, and then acknowledging yourself. Most importantly, knowing that what, God created me, He made me, and I have to see myself like that. That He has given me value, He's given me wealth, and He tells me who I am in His Word, and that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, so it's very, very profound. On this kind of talk that we need to have. These are kind of discussions we need to have. This has helped us grow. It challenges, but it helps us grow, right? And it helps us to mature as better men and women that we could be better for whomever we end up being with. Because I do believe that we should be complete. I do. As a man, I should be complete. I believe in being complete. You hear a lot of people say, this person complete me. No, I should complete you. You should be already completed before they even came into the picture. Now you want a person that's already complete as well, where y'all can compliment each other, but not say we complete each other. We compliment each other, not complete against each other. So that's it's a beautiful thing when you put this stuff
But you're
together.
right. You're right. I don't. No one can complete me outside of myself and the good Lord.
Right.
So I'm not looking for my husband to complete me, or I hope that he knows that I cannot complete him. We just need to be two whole people coming together. But
Mhm.
it goes back to self love. But the majority of people in our society today, we don't practice self love. We don't take this time after one relationship to heal. We hop from relationship to relationship to relationship, and this is all while ignoring our inner child. That inner child that needs to be healed. I think that everyone in their 20s should just take a break right after high school. Just take a break, find yourself, heal whatever trauma you faced when you were a kid, so that way you're not on first dates venting about how mom locked you in a closet. Now we could talk about that on a honeymoon or something, but please don't trauma dump on me. Going from relationship to relationship, it's destructive, and instead of just acknowledging the red flags, and sometimes I'm guilty, we just run right through the flag instead of just saying, "Hey, I feel something in my spirit, and maybe maybe in the future, but as of right now, it's a no." And then we lay down, and that's another set of demons. So I'm hoping that at one point in time, the Black community and society in general, we can get back to that nuclear family structure that we once had.
Oh yes, it will happen. I believe it will happen because God led us here for a reason, and I do believe it will happen. It's just all about making it happen, and I do believe in that because it's here. He gave us a solution. He gave us the answer to our problems. We just got to apply it on a regular basis, and that's what it's all about. Because life could be beautiful. Life is what we make out of it. Um, Me personally, and just having that vision, having that goal in mind, what we want to accomplish. If I could talk about write the vision, make it plain, who's our readers around with. That's another thing. We don't have a vision for our lives. We never develop a mission statement for our lives. Businesses have mission statements, other people have business, mission statement, but as a people, we need to have a mission statement for our own life. Like, look at yourself as a business. We are, you know what I'm saying? Look at yourself as a business. But building this structure, putting this thing together, and developing ourselves. That's why I wish in our 20s we look for this, we look for that. And you said some our 20s, but just imagine it would have took the time out in our 20s, get to know ourselves, because you just really coming into life. So we don't really know ourselves like that. And we kind of like go through these emotions, we make these decisions, we end up making these bad decisions, some be bad, some good. But just imagine if we could redo things all over again. Like, wow, I wish I would have known this when I was in my 20s instead of learning this stuff when I'm in my 40s. But just look at the lack of discipline that we lack. Because we allow our feelings, we allow our emotion, we allow this flesh. Even the Apostle Paul says, no good thing come out this flesh. And we know we allow this flesh to run us ragged until we got to learn how to discipline this flesh, kill this flesh, to get this flesh under subjection. I understand why the scripture tells us to walk in the spirit, so we won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. And that's my prayer is to walk in the spirit, so I won't fulfill the lust of the flesh, because the flesh will get me messed up. The flesh can end you up
Mhm.
dead or whatever.
All kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, it's most dangerous. So, like I said, I know we're about that pressing for that time. We're almost at that mark. And appreciate you, Pay, for coming on here to have these discussions. Like I said, hope was said was benefit to the audience that was listening, though will listen to the in the future as well. Before we get ready to depart, Pay, do you have any words of advice, any words of advice, sound of wisdom? Also plug in your social media sites as well so people get all the updates on the election, your next speaking engagement around the city, and all of the great stuff.
Of course. So, first, I want to say before you think about judging a black conservative, be careful because they may have founded the Republican Party in the state of Texas. But seriously, just think independently when it comes to anything, but specifically politics. Don't follow left, don't follow right. Do your research and come to your own conclusion. And don't be afraid to um, go against the crowd. Go against that crowd because I mean, the worst they can do is talk about you. But all of my social media handles, for the most part, is no taxing with Jackson.
CC.
But if you want to follow my progress, you can follow me at notaxingwithjackson.com.
And awesome stuff. So, like I said, we thank you again. Next, by the great passing on to you, lead us out, and we'll be back here this coming Saturday. So go ahead and lead us out, and we'll be back with y'all Saturday at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern.
Amen. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all Kingdom Chick Nancy C. Romans 10:9 says, if you confess with your heart and believe with your heart, with your mind, that Jesus Christ is Lord, you shall be saved. So right now, just say, dear Lord Jesus, I admit that I'm a sinner. Please forgive me of my sins.